Good morning, this is the Red Wizard. Thank you for joining me here. It is 5:59 in the morning. Most of the work I get done is at this time because I have 3 little kids and a full-time job. Super busy. So I'm working on the cover of my graphic novel. And this is something I've been working on for over a year now, and I'm trying to get as many pages as I can done by March. Today is one of the last days of January, I think it's the 28th. So I got a lot of work to do. Don't have a lot of time to edit videos, so that's why I have you here. I don't have my makeup on, I haven't showered yet, right? Don't got time. So, hey, thank you for being here, and I'm just gonna draw and let you know what I'm doing. We'll just riff a little bit. Everything I've been drawing lately has taken me, well, I should say each page has kind of been taking me 2 or 3 tries. Is it a waste of Bristol board? Maybe. I'm sure many other artists go from a sketchbook to a sketch to a whatever to a what have you to like save their Bristol board. I've tried that. I have sketchbooks and sketchbooks and sketchbooks and sketchbooks filled with roughs and things like that, but I don't know. The graphic designer in me just can't fully be happy with what I'm seeing unless I kind of see it full size. So that's where we're at. Kind of making a big mouth slash sphincter thingy. It's weird. This is a very strange story. But writing a strange story is much easier for me than writing more of a normal story. Drawing strange things is much easier for me as well, because that's what I grew up doing. I'm using a lot of templates and French curves and stuff like that because I've really come to admire art from the 1800s, like William Blake, Marie Duval, and a lot of that art looks like it's done in pen and ink, but in actuality they are like lithographic prints, and those prints are really more, they're super like accurate because they were etchings, and they use different tools to make the etchings, like the curves and the lines and everything like that, to like really be straight. They would have this like plate that they would rotate, they had this like kind of lazy Susan thing, or this wheel that they would rotate the plate on to make curves and things like that. And we're just kind of using different hacks to create that same quality of line. trouble with using these tools. It's easy to get so zeroed in that I kind of forget what I'm doing, and I'll go over a line or something like that, or I'll draw one of these thingies on something that's not even supposed to have a circle on it. The image is of a character in my story who is kind of belaying or spacewalking out of one of the spaceships in the story. But in my sci-fi story, the spaceships are not machines. They're more like these big giant Franken animals, Frankenstein kind of animals. They're a patchwork of whales and other large mammals that are kind of used as a thing for these humans to kind of hibernate in. And there's like a carapace on it that like protects them. I wanted to tell a story that was science fiction and like in space, but it had the same feeling of some of the kind of horror or adventure books that I love from the Romantic era, using that term kind of loosely, but like if you've ever read Moby Dick, like, you know, it's a story about whaling, but it's so full of mystery. The world seems like such a giant and like such a gigantic and mysterious place. And one of my pet peeves about science fiction is these are stories that happen in space, but people just, I don't know, run around in outer space like it's no big deal. They just jump out of a spaceship. They're just breathing the air on the planet, you know, like, I love Star Trek, but, you know, essentially people in Star Trek just go to every planet in a jumpsuit, they beam up, they beam out. It's just too easy. It's too easy for the characters in those stories to do things, in my opinion. And yes, there's things like hard science fiction, which is like more, stresses more of like the science, right? You have like The Martian, what was a good example of that, right? Where it gets down into the nitty gritty of how is this person going to survive on Mars, completely isolated. And yeah, it is more difficult for Matt Damon to survive on that planet. And that's cool, you know. But I think science fiction makes way too many assumptions about the futures that human beings might have in outer space. It makes way too many assumptions about how alien life would be like. They're either completely evil, like a virus, or like the alien creature, the xenomorph, or they're just so incomprehensibly, just so intelligent we can't even comprehend them, and I don't know. Everything's just so overdone. Everything's just so overdone. As far as I know, no one's told a story like I'm telling. How small can I go? It's pretty small. That looks better. Making cover art's kind of weird because it's kind of a hook. You know, you need to tell people, give them an idea of what the story is about. It's like an advertising page in a way. But I don't want to give too much away. It is not a quick process making all these lines. Sometimes I regret using this process. I actually originally got this circle template because I studied landscape architecture, which is kind of like middle ground between urban planning and architecture. So these circle templates I used to use for like plan drawings, and these would be like a bird's eye view of the landscape, and so circle templates are often used for drawing tree canopies. And when I first started making comics a little over a year ago, I started on the iPad, Procreate. I mean, iPad's a super useful tool, but as I got more into drawing comics, I began to realize that drawing on a tablet is kind of like a bottomless pit of potential, and it wasn't good for me. I could erase too much, I could restart. I mean, I was trained in, drawing when I was in architecture school, but the collage artist in me was really used to kind of this high pressure situation drawing, where when you're making a collage and you're really dialed in, when you're cutting something, cutting a source image, there's this feeling like I really better not mess up what I'm doing, because this is like the only picture I have here and I really need it for this piece. And when I went back to ink drawing, just to try it out, I feel that kind of same intensity. Like every time I put my pen to the paper, the stakes are high. I could totally mess up this entire page. And it does happen, but that's fine, and it's better for me as an artist, and it's more meditative for me, because I just really got to focus. When I was doing art on my iPad, I barely used my studio, which certainly is a convenience, but I was able to like make my comics sitting on a beanbag chair upstairs when my kids were watching TV and stuff, which again, can be super convenient, but something is lost for me when it's kind of like this is like a sword fight, or I don't know. The stakes are higher, and it's better for me. It's more real, has more feeling. Digital art can be beautiful. I collect Magic the Gathering cards, and I spend a lot of money on those, and all that is digital art, and I really enjoy the art. But I think as humans we all know somehow that it is digital, and there's something about it that just feels off with digital art. Maybe our conscious kind of subconsciously knows that it's not, at the end of the day, it's not really human hands that are making it. And I think whether we know it or not, we appreciate knowing a human hand made something. Makes it more real. I like to compare art to athletics. I grew up in a family full of jocks, and I always say art is like athletics, but for fine motor movement. You're training your hands and your eyes to really get dialed in and pick up or be able to make movements that are really fine, really small. And whether you like sports or not, I think one of the reasons why you could watch a short clip of a highlight or something and appreciate it is because, like, you're looking at a human being with a human body, and you watch them do something spectacular, some move, some catch, some goal, and that feeling of like, holy shit, I can't believe you did that. The reason why it's impressive is because you have a body, you know how it moves. You know how well it moves or how well it doesn't move. And when you see someone able to accomplish these physical feats that are outstanding, it resonates with you. I think art has a similar effect or faculty where people get really impressed. Oh, I can't draw that. Holy crap. You appreciate it because you know how your body moves. And when you see that someone could move their body in ways that you can't, it's impressive. So, how did I train my body to move this way? A lot of practice, but not practice in a vacuum. I zeroed in on some artists that I knew I wanted to draw like specifically for this project. Kind of picked my favorite artists that I think were relevant to a project like this. I mean, I still have my favorite artists of all time, but you know, one's a sculptor and I don't know, one's a painter. I could look at their work for inspiration for like composition and stuff, but I really needed to find artists whose drawing styles I really appreciated, particularly black and white ones, or ones that could be kind of translated into black and white, because visual artists are problem solvers, and that they figure out how to represent, they solve the problem of learning how to represent something visually. How do you draw somebody that's laying down? How do you draw a sunset in the fog? You know, these are challenging things. There's people out there who've done it already, and if you, in your sketchbook, if you copy what they're doing and you learn how they solve these problems that you're trying to solve, it's just like listening to an elder, right? You don't have to go out and learn everything on your own by taking knocks on the head. The masters have done it already. Learn from them. And then when you go to make your own project after you've practiced by copying these artists, it's still your own, but you know how they've done it, and they've taught you. So for like drawing, it usually has to do with form and composition, form being the kind of three-dimensional aspect of a work. I learned a ton by studying William Blake. You know, there's so many books about how to draw, and a lot of those how to draw books start with shapes and forms, right? Eggs, circles, rectangles, things like that. You get the form down first. Yeah, it's all well and good, but if you could learn that from your favorite artist first, an artist that you want to be like, there's a chance that those forms and shapes will like really resonate with you, and it really unlocks your own potential. While I was collaging, it's been 6 years, I did not let myself draw for about 5 of them. I got pretty fierce ADD, and I wanted to do 500 different things at once, art-wise, and I decided I was going to create Red Wizard Collage as a project. And I just started with kind of like an Instagram challenge for myself. I was going to try to make a collage every day and post it. I learned a ton, and it was probably the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made. But once I started collaging with comics, I kind of had this aha moment where I was like, wait a second. I freaking love comics so much, and if I'm honest with myself, this is like why I wanted to be an artist in the first place, to make things like this. So collaging with comic books was kind of this bridge, and helped make me realize that this is what I really wanted to be doing. And it's not lost time. I mean, if I would have showed you my drawings from a year ago, you'd be like, yeesh. But I know so much more shit now. It's crazy. I know so much more stuff. I know so many more things. From that time off from drawing, I think if I would have spent most of my life only drawing my favorite Batman and Spider-Man and, you know, characters like Todd McFarlane stuff, I don't know if I would be able to make this comic. because it's so out of the box. And last time I drew like a true like comic hero was probably in middle school. But this isn't a superhero comic. And that might not be good for you, but it's good for me that I have not been doing that. Because I don't see like superhero shapes and bodies in my characters as I draw them, and that makes me happy. Figure drawing is tough. Drawing people is the hardest, in my opinion, because it's the most scrutinized art form, because human beings consciously or unconsciously know how a human being is supposed to look. And if the proportions are off, again, consciously or unconsciously, the viewer knows something's off. But thankfully I've learned you don't have to learn everything at once. A great tool for making a comic book or a graphic novel is really rough drafts and thumbnails, because you can make one of these things without having to know how to draw a human in every single position, because you don't need to do that for your comics. So when you do your roughs, you can, it basically breaks it down into bite-sized pieces, right? Like, you don't, for example, when I'm looking at my roughs, I could say, oh, you know what, I need to learn how to draw person like doing this, because on this page this person's doing that, right? Like, there are no trees in this first installment, so I don't need to learn how to draw trees for this part. Okay, I know it sounds silly, but if you just go on Google and you're like, oh, how do I become a comic book artist, you will get discouraged, because people will tell you that you have to learn how to draw all this stuff, but you don't. Once you have your roughs, then you know what you need to know how to draw. And even then, you don't have to be like perfect at it, because you could use references to help you draw those things. Using references is it's not cheating at all, right? Like, all those Renaissance masters that people admire, a lot of those people were looking at other people to draw those things, right? That's why it looks so real, because there was a freaking person sitting there in the room, you know, half naked, holding up some grapes. That's what they were drawing. Wow, I actually did all those circles. Not sure if I'm happy with it yet. That's fine.